Hello.
Hi.
Hi, welcome to our book club. We are going to be discussing the second chapter of Psycho-Cybernetics. So take it away, Arlene.
Discovering the success mechanism within you. So, what would you say a good summary of this chapter is?
Wow. I got so much out of it. I would say that I would summarize it as like trust in yourself, like learning to trust yourself and trust your inner guidance
Mm-hmm.
to guide you towards the path of your success. And of course, he explains it in different ways, different scientific ways, where sometimes you're like, wow, it's all right there.
All right there. I really like that summary. So, I really love this chapter because it really breaks down what the success mechanism is, and because of the breakdown, it gives you that trust into not worrying about it and how to stress about it.
Yeah. And to piggyback on that, he talks about how, yeah, it's not about stressing about it. It's not about putting effort about it, like in whatever goal, whatever desire you have in mind, the more that we stress about it, the more that we, really like push towards it, the harder that it would be to become that because we're working mostly from the conscious mind, which is the 12%, which is the willpower, reasoning, decision making. But the part where we have to work with is the 88%, which is the subconscious mind. And that is where hypnotherapy comes in. And I love how he talks about that, like how, hypnotherapy allows you to really calm your mind, calm your body, to allow the inner guidance to come through, right? Especially if we
Hmm.
have a problem, like, so I think that was just like, so far, that was like my favorite part about this chapter here.
Exactly what you said about how hypnosis puts you in that relaxation state and how the answers and solutions come in the spontaneous when it least expect. Not when you're trying to consciously will it and force it and try to think and put an effort. That causes just more
Exactly.
resistance.
Exactly. And the simplest example is like if we lose our keys, right? And we're like stressing out, where did our keys go, But the moment you distract yourself or you're focused on something else, you naturally find it. And that is the
Mm-hmm.
same way when it comes to problem solving, right? Like when you allow your mind just to relax, just to let that go for a little while and focus on something else, then your servo mechanism will get to work and bring you the answer when you least expect it.
Yes, the servo mechanism. So I would say this chapter is really about the servo mechanism and how you can put it to work for you, and how it's not saying you are a machine, but you have a machine that you can use to your advantage, that it's already operating, but it's giving you how it operates and why it works.
Exactly. Yeah, because he says, yeah, like it works like a machine, but we're not the machine, right?
Mm.
Um, but it's like learning how to use it. So after reading this chapter, like what are you going to apply on your day-to-day life to to work with that server mechanism towards a goal that you have? Because one of the reasons that we're doing this is also our personal development, but also towards ourselves doing the
Hmm.
work to take us towards our goals, towards our dreams, right?
So, something that I definitely got from this chapter is to make it clear
Mm-hmm.
goal
Mm-hmm.
and a decision, and just doing that is already halfway of the work already.
Mm-hmm.
So just being clear on what I want, and being more decisive and just feeding having that self-image, not questioning how it's gonna show up, but just feeding the servo mechanism positive and using the feedback, the negative feedback as uh redirection, how he was saying the torpedo or the missile
Yeah, yeah.
and
And
taking sorry, and taking
exact
action, like forward action, and the forward action, whether negative or positive, will direct you. It's like it'll be a zigzag.
yeah, and not giving meaning to it, right?
Mhm.
Because, he talks about like feedback, is in a way to take us to whether are we like colder, warmer, right? That direction. But a lot of the times, if we take those mistakes, that failure, and we give meaning to it, we take it personal, then we're attaching to it instead of seeing it in the perspective of like, oh wow, maybe I should do things a different way. Maybe I should change direction, to allow us to, take us towards that path of like the inner knowing instead of taking it like, oh wow, there's something wrong with me. I'm not smart enough because I failed or I made a mistake. And being able to see it as that machine,
Mhm.
of like machines don't take things personal. It's just feedback to help them
Be
figure
more
out a problem.
effective.
Mhm.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense, and it helps us just not get because it slows us down when we get all emotional and all like, "Oh, is that an attack?" Or, like, we get
Yeah,
caught up all our feelings, and it just, like, lowers your productivity level.
exactly,
Mhm.
exactly. And I really love that perspective because, for me, I feel like growing up, mistakes were like wow, like you messed up, like, and there's like all these emotions coming along of like I'm a bad person because I made this mistake when I never even knew how to do whatever they wanted me to do in the beginning, like
Mhm.
the skill was not built, like it was just like the expectation of getting it right the first time,
Yeah.
whether it was in school, whether it was at home, it was just like so ingrained that mistakes were not okay. And I had to relearn and reframe it that how we're supposed to know we never even try something. And we're going to make a lot
Exactly.
of mistakes along the way, right?
Mhm, and I bet that makes it hard for you to get like, started on things because of the fear of, like, it has to be perfect.
Exactly. And that's something I dealt with like for years, that perfectionism. I have to get it right the first time, those fears. But again, I had to reframe it through hypnotherapy that it's okay. Like I don't have to hold tension. I don't have to give it meaning. I don't have to attach to it. This is the way the evolution is,
It's just feedback.
which is feedback.
Mhm,
Yeah, which is feedback, right?
and it'll just get there faster once you recognize that it's feedback so you could adjust the course of action.
Exactly, exactly. And also, like going back to what you said also about like, the internal servo mechanism works best when we feed it clear positive goals.
Mhm,
And as well as the subconscious doesn't distinguish between real and imagined experiences. It responds to the mental imagery and belief. So going back on that, like how like when you are deciding to give yourself like that clear direction of deciding, but also um creating mental images, right?
mhm.
How have you incorporated that like in your work, like your own personal work?
So, like, visually, I would do, like, the self-hypnosis, and then I would see just like a scene from
Hmm.
my, I guess, everyday life in my imagined future, and then
Hmm.
every single day I would come back to that scene and refine it a little more, like, see it with more detail, with a little more emotion, like, incorporating more of the senses, if that's what
Mm-hmm.
you're talking about.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So doing some of that in hypnosis, and then writing. I've been getting into some of like more of the technical stuff in hypnosis too, like how to write suggestions, and I'll write suggestions in different ways, and reading some suggestions as affirmations that kind of resonate with my brain during a
Mm,
certain time more. So it kind of like out of a list of five, I would say, okay, which one kind of like resonates more if it's like on love, wealth, or whatever in different
mhm,
categories, and then just kind of like circling it and kind of putting it in my own words because it has more of that feeling, and
mhm.
incorporating that in the like self-image
Yeah.
visualizations. Mhm.
Yeah. I love that.
What about
Yeah.
you?
Um, for me, it's more about like having that feeling of experiencing it.
Mhm.
Um, Sometimes I have a little bit of trouble with imagination, with actually seeing that image. But again, we all work different. Our mind works different for everybody.
Mhm.
And for me, it's mostly that sensation of like, how would it feel like this? And if you never had something, of course, a lot of people say like, how are you supposed to know how to feel? But it's always taking it back to an experience where you had that feeling, like whether it's like a small accomplishment, and just going back and tapping into that feeling of how it felt like,
Mhm.
you know, it always helps, especially if you never had that experience. So for me,
Yes.
it's very like that of like, when was a time where I felt so uplifted, so accomplished, and then really tapping into that.
Yes, and it goes back to, I think, chapter 1 where it says if you ever learned how to tie a shoe, like,
Hmm.
this can work for you because you could tap into something as small as that and just
Exactly.
keep on channeling that energy. And I love how you brought it up, how everyone experiences imagination differently.
Hmm.
So, uh, because you're a hypnotherapist, so for the viewers out there who are like, oh, I don't have those visuals, or
Hmm.
those experiences that people are describing, then you're not alone because it's
Yeah,
normal.
it,
Hmm.
it, it is so normal. Especially because, visualization has been out there like, oh, just visualize it, just paint a
Hmm.
picture in your mind. But, for for others that don't visualize it, or it's hard for them to picture a picture in their mind. It just takes um a different route, to
Yes,
get
and the
there.
word visualization is deceiving because it's like feeling too, but we think of visualizing as just eyes with the
In,
visual.
in
Yeah.
your mind's eye, yeah, exactly, exactly. um and there was this other thing that was pretty so the where it talks about failure mechanism versus success mechanism. And it talks about the same internal system can work against you if programmed with fear, doubt, or limited beliefs. Negative self-talk and past failures can activate the failure mechanism. Reprogramming your self-image is key to activating the success mechanism. And he has, I don't know if you all have this book, but of course, this is always a good book to have in your library. And he has a little presentation here where he says, you, as the creator of your own life experiences, first start with the conscious mind, which is decision making, like the logic mind that I want to change this thing in my life. And the second is imagination, communicates the goal to target, which, like you mentioned, you got to have that clear intention, for the subconscious mind to know where we're heading. And of course, that's like the subconscious mind, which is the 88% of how your mind works. And then three, self-image, which is aligning the self-image to the person that you're being, right? Towards that goal of like, how does this person act like? How does this person be? What are this person experiences? And for work order instruction to servo mechanism, right? And that is where like a lot of that inner guidance comes of like that inspired action, because you also have to act on it.
Mm-hmm.
And earlier we were talking about how songwriters, artists, you know, um, even Albert Einstein, he talks about like how the answer just came from above, right? Like, and he talks about like where, it mentions in a way how we're talking that we're the vessel of getting in that information, of the action step, right? And that is when you allow and you let go and just trust the process. As your body is relaxed, your mind is relaxed, then you allow that connection to the higher self, the universe, whatever you may want to call it, whatever is like a higher power for you to bring in. It becomes that bridge just to come in and give you the answer of whatever it may be that you want to go towards, right?
Yes, and that's a good strategy when you're frustrated trying to come up with
Mm-hmm.
the answer. So it's like kind of like that surrender and like
Mm-hmm.
let go. I give
Uh-huh.
to God and the answer will come.
Yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
Exactly.
And it's good because you're not alone. You have
Mm.
infinite
You're not alone.
intelligence to channel.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that is a good something to really know, that we're never alone. A lot of times we feel alone, like, but I think that as soon as you surrender, you allow those answers to come through, those people to come through, that mentor to come through to help you out and give you that guidance.
Yeah, and it's surrendering your ego to be willing to accept and ask for help.
Exactly.
Hmm.
And he talks a lot about like trusting the process, like that you don't need to know every step, just know the end result you desire. And he mentions like it's like a heat-seeking missile. Your mind will course correct through trial and error, what we were talking about earlier. And then he talks about relaxation and confidence help the mechanism function smoothly. So, it refers to what we were talking about earlier, like.
Hmm. And another, I was reading over, and another thing that kind of reflected what we could incorporate in hypnosis is this part. It says the automatic It says, once, however, a correct or successful response has been accomplished, it is remembered for future use. The automatic mechanism then duplicates this successful response on future trials. It has learned how to respond successfully. It forgets its failures and repeats the successful action without any further conscious thought. That is, as a habit, which kind of is what we do in hypnosis because the brain doesn't recognize if it's real or imagined. So if we're visualizing our success image and our success events, it's then priming and making familiar in our stored memory um these success images instead replacing these failure ones. And then once we go into the real world and get evidence of the success, then it forgets the failures, and this becomes our new normal.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mhm.
And I'm so glad you brought that up, because um as I was listening to it, and that really resonated with me. And again, it was like another way of like just like building that trust within, of like just going more towards the positive of what you want, even though there's going to be the trial and error. But after a while, once you're going to smooth it out and you see more of the positive things manifesting, then it forgets about, in a way, it kind of forgets about everything
Yeah.
that you went through. And it kind of reminds me of like, well, I have three kids, and being pregnant for me is just like throwing up. It was like really bad for me.
Mm-hmm.
And just having the baby, it was like painful, and everything else is just like
Oh my gosh, I never had a kid, but I'm at that age. So like, but it scares me like when you're describing that. Yeah, continue. Sorry.
yeah, so I had three C-sections, and and it was just like the recovery, the pain, and just going through everything. But then at the end of the day, when you have your baby right in front of you, and you're just
Mm-hmm.
like in so much bliss and joy, you forget about all the pain that you went through. Like all the for me it was like all the throwing up for like 9 months, like being in like being able to hardly walk, for the first couple months, and all everything that my body went through. It's like I forget because I have this beautiful baby right in front of me that is like the end goal, right? Like the end goal. And I was thinking about like that, how you forget about everything that in a way you went through. And in a way, it's kind of like that makes you feel stronger, and that makes you feel like proud of yourself that you didn't give up.
Yes, that
But
you didn't
then
give
once you
up.
have that joy, of like having that wish fulfilled in a way, then you're like, wow, this feels so good. And you think more towards that path.
Yes, yes. And I think what you said could be relatable for so many. And that same feeling could be applied in everywhere. Like I was thinking maybe graduating and then having to do the homework and that
Yeah.
making it all worth it, or going on
Mhm.
trips, or doing like a marathon, and once you get the medal, like all that pain, it's worth it. So like it's that
Yeah,
pain and that failure that you forget about once you get the success, like that medal, metaphorically
exactly.
speaking, or that
Exactly.
baby.
Or that baby, and I feel like, like for us, like with our practice, right? Like there's like so much work involved in it. Like countless hours of so much like work that has to be done. But at the end, it's like, like it's worth it, right? Because we're doing something
Hmm.
that really is aligned with who we are, but what we want, so everything, I feel that everything in life, you know, um, it matters more when you know that you put so much heart into it and you trusted the process, and you really had the courage
The
to see what would
courage.
happen if you actually put yourself out there, if you actually came out of your comfort zone to want more, be more, you know?
Hmm. Like you have to go through the doubt and the limitations and
Mhm.
all the like self obstacles you put on yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Um, I have a question for you.
Hmm.
So, so this concept of like self-image, um, how do you think before knowing this information, like how was your life different than
Hmm.
what it is now? Because I know that you have read this book before, and like as I have, but before even knowing this information, how was it different in the way that you function, um or you set your goals than what it is now?
So before I read this book, it really, I think I kind of already was using the principles of the psycho-cybernetics without realizing it, and it put it into words, how people changed, because everyone goes through changes in their lives, from one person to the next. So I was always kind of observing, like from a young age, how can I be better? How can I improve and whatnot? And it always started with kind of so in college I wanted to be a plastic surgeon, like
Right.
Dr. Maltz, how he was, because I saw that once you improved how you looked, it can change your life, you know?
Yeah.
And every year before school, um, like in middle school, I was not allowed to wear makeup.
Uh-huh.
But so that's what I wanted to do the most, you know?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And so, I would sneak my makeup, and then before school, I would like do it, and then I'm okay. I feel like a brand new person going
Yeah.
to school. Um, and then have to like take it off before your mom finds out or whatever. So it's like, okay, so the way you look and your self-image kind of have different identities, like different experiences you attract based on how you look. So I kind of knew that. And then reading the book really put it all into words and made it more technical and made it more of a career out of it because I was so obsessed with it at an early age. I'm like, oh my God, there's like words and whole like programs and whole, you know,
Yeah.
yeah, whole industries built on these
Hmm.
concepts. So for me,
Hmm.
it really went from, okay, something that I just kind of like did and knew into, okay, I'm gonna make a career out of this and I'm gonna make this like a passion. So it was more like a bit, not business side, but like, you know what I mean? Like, not like it hit so deep that I changed my career into wanting to do this. That was like the main transformation in that.
Wow.
Hmm.
So it was kind of like that calling, right?
Hmm.
Like the calling, and I honestly feel that books come into our life for a reason. And I feel that it's our higher self guiding us because like every book that I have in my bookshelf is like I look at it, I'm like, oh, I needed this in this specific time in my life. And
Hmm.
I always go back to like whatever I need depending on what I'm going through in my life, you
Yes,
know?
yes.
And but I feel like this book is kind of like every chapter like just hits different and like in different stages in my life, of like,
Hmm.
you know.
What about for yourself? For the same question.
Yeah, so I mean, as for me, I mean, growing up, I love like always wanted to make people feel beautiful. So I have my cosmetology license, and I think that was like my first like calling of like it was just so satisfying like the moment that I gave like a fresh haircut, how
Hmm.
people felt more lighter and like just that confidence, the energy felt different, or like a hair color or makeup or whatever it was like when they saw themselves in the mirror, it was like, wow, like that
Hmm.
smile, how they felt, how they walked different. And I love that, and that was before, of course, I read the book, but it was just like this like inner knowing of like I want to help people feel their best and be their best, right? And going through my own work of like having social anxiety, seeking answers, it was just like one thing led to another to like seek me towards this book. And actually, when I was doing this course of law of attraction with manifestation babe, she recommended this book.
Mm.
Yeah, it was like my first like into understanding law of attraction. So she's like, this book is amazing and this and that. And I'm like, hmm. So I grabbed it right away and I absorbed it. And I'm like, oh my God, it makes sense. I don't have to be stuck like this my entire
Hmm.
life. I could be someone that I know I always wanted to be. And then I could like, and then from there it led to like, well, how I'm gonna do it, and that's where he talks about hypnotherapy, and I was like,
Mm.
hmm.
So it's kind of like the same for me too and you because mine was um I went to college because I wanted to be a plastic surgeon. My first job was at Sephora for the same reason. C- like how you did hair and makeup to make people feel beautiful because you saw their reaction. And I think that
Mhm.
led us to this work because it gives us the same effect as doing it externally, but now it's like internal, you know?
Yeah,
You don't you
exactly.
don't need
And
anything extra.
exactly. And I feel like when it's like internally, like you don't need too much to do externally. You know what I mean? Like for me, back in the days, like I would wear like really heavy makeup where it was like, this is not me, right? Because inside of me, I was like not liking myself. So I needed to change this. But the more that I started to work on myself, the less makeup, more natural, more myself, because I didn't need like that validation. It was like before you wouldn't see me go to the store without makeup. Now I was like, I'm all good. I could just go bare, and now,
Yes.
you know,
And
and
mhm.
and, and now it's because internally, like I like myself. You
Yeah, and
know,
don't
I love who I am.
and don't you uh like kind of recognize that you feel prettier and you kind of look prettier once you stop caring like
Yeah,
how you look like you actually like looked prettier like physically. It's kind of weird how
exactly.
that happens.
That is that
Mhm.
that that is the thing. Like I have pictures, where I see my poor self-image, and I look like maybe when I was like in my mid 20s, I look like I was like in my 40s, like I was just so like doubting myself. I didn't like myself. And then the moment I made that shift, I started to look more younger and
Mhm.
fresher and happier. My eyes look different, more open. So there is a shift that happens in our face.
It really, really, really is. And then I remember in college, I would do these manifestation tricks, and I would Photoshop a picture of me with my nose smaller, and I would put it as my background on my phone, and then people would be like, "Arlene, that's so conceited. Why do you have a picture of yourself?" But they didn't know what I was up to. Because the more eyes I had it, the more it charged the picture in this new reality of myself with a smaller nose. And I swear, like, my nose got smaller, like my face got prettier too, just with little like subconscious tricks of like photoshopping my face smaller and then like having this new reality and then people like laying their eyes on it. So it's like,
That shift.
mhm.
Yeah, no, that is the thing, that is the shift. And it goes back to like for example, sometimes when we keep uh we keep like for example, like when it comes to like when what is it called? Like, a lot of times when we feel in a certain way and we Google things, like, oh, this might mean that you have this disease or you may have this. And the more that we Google stuff, like the more that we get sick because our
Yes,
subconscious mind is like
suggestible to it.
suggestible to it, right? But when you focus on the other direction of like maybe taking better care of yourself, maybe just doing like a little checkup to make sure everything's okay, and maybe drinking more water, you go into another direction, right? So you could go both ways of like
hmm
you
While you're
know
still in the same thing, you could be tuning into different frequencies, like I'm sick or versus I'm healing, or I'm in a healing frequency versus I'm in a like
exactly
disease sick. Yeah.
exactly, that is so true, yes. And I also had another question for you. um I wrote it down. maybe maybe I didn't write it down.
Okay, maybe I'll ask you a question.
Yes.
Okay, what was mm, one of the biggest shocks, I guess, what stood out to you the most that kind of shocked you, or I guess you had the most resistance to?
Yeah, so I think that for a big part is like having the intelligence and the knowledge of, knowing how things work, but the resistance is where we believe that it's too simple.
Sorry, repeat. We believe it's too simple.
Yeah, like for example, like once like consciously, we understand this information, we study this information of how the mind works, of how to create that, ideal self-image,
Mm-hmm.
right? We have the knowledge, like the studies behind it. It's right here, right in front of us, right? But I feel for me, some of the time my ego gets in the way, and it's like it's too easy. It's too
Mm-hmm.
simple. Like really, like it's so easy. You know, like that fact that it could be something so simple to do, but yeah, because it's so simple, we tend to resist it.
Yes, because if it's easy to do something, then it's easy not to do something.
Hmm.
But I guess just because it's simple doesn't mean it's not easy or that it's easy, you know?
Exactly.
So,
Yeah. So I think that was like that's the thing for me of like, wow, like this makes so much sense. And I always have known this in one way or another, but
hmm.
yet it's like so simple that sometimes I resist doing it.
Yes, yes, that makes total sense.
Yes. What about yourself?
Mm, I guess the most, I guess the most like shocking maybe would be kind of like a reminder that the answer is already there, that what you're looking for um is already there, and because you wouldn't be looking for it if it doesn't already exist. So just knowing that it exists, or just the fact that you're looking for something kind of like materializes that the answer is there, or like there's a realization that the answer is there already because you're searching for it. So it must
Yeah.
be there. Yeah.
So it must be there. Yeah.
Hmm.
He talks about like, like that giant search engine, right? Um, that we have the giant search engine to provide precisely the idea, information, or solution you need to for any particular purpose, even reaching beyond your own stored data to obtain it. Yeah, so like you said, like it's already there. If you were to imagine that giant search engine that has all the answers, the answer is there, but it's just about allowing, relaxing, trusting to allow that to come, in
Hmm.
whatever way, shape, or form. But it's like also working with this other part of us that, tends to resist because of like what would happen if we move towards that direction? How would things be different? You know?
Hmm.
And another thing is like, the nervous system, right? Like if the nervous system has not been exposed to towards the direction that you want to go, it could get into the fight or flight response of like, we never done it. It's just scary. Are we safe? And therefore, the cortisol goes up, and therefore we shut down. We just completely shut down, where we don't allow the answer to come within because the nervous system. So that's another thing, being able to relax the nervous system, bring some safety, that it's okay. We're not in a danger zone right now. We're just working towards the shift and allow it to feel safe towards going towards that direction. Because that's what it is. Any something new whether it's something that we completely, it's a dream for us, you know, that we've been wanting for so long, could become very scary for the nervous system, like a shocker, almost where it brings anxiety, it brings resistance. You feel inside your body like you're gonna die, you know? And I know that I experienced that, and it's also the other part of the work.
Yes, and that's where the hypnosis comes in because you familiarize that. Because once you in that situation, then your nervous system is familiar with it because you've been visualizing it and doing the work in hypnosis.
Exactly. And that also, that's why it's also helpful to feel that experience in your body of how would it feel once you reach that goal. You know, make it, you start to make it familiar, so when it does happen, you know, your nervous system has at least some type of, if it's some type of familiarity to it,
Mhm.
where it's like, oh yeah, we kind of experienced this before, like, yeah, you know, instead of like, you know, just shocking it.
Yes, the kind of the shock response
The
or the
shock
freeze
response.
response.
The
Uh-huh.
Yeah, yeah. And the freeze response is kind of scary to be there because you feel stuck. You feel you can't move, you know, and you have to kind of like take some time to, you know, make it feel okay, you know.
Mhm. Okay, so what do you think to that you're gonna take with you? Because we're gonna be studying this chapter, right? For the next
Yes.
3 weeks. So what are you gonna do, I guess, for this week or the next 3 weeks to really kinda hammer it in?
Yeah, so I'm thinking that I'm gonna do this exercise of
Mental
like,
picture?
yeah, like I want to focus on, he has an exercise that says conduct an accurate inventory and analysis of the contents of my self-image. So I'm thinking that I want to really like um really have like a center like self-hypnosis where I'm able to see myself as I am now
Mhm.
and describe like where I feel now with my self-image, because I'm going through changes as well, you know, like just like starting like this practice and you know, like marketing, and it's like a lot of new stuff. So I think that to see where I am now with my self-image and see like what this next version of myself look is going to look like, and what qualities I need to implement, and how do I need to feel like being in the experience of like already having that wish fulfilled, which I think those are more words of Neville Carter.
Mhm.
Yeah, but that word is just kind of
Let's
like in
stick
my
with
mind, it just sticks to me because, and again, a lot of these top thinkers, they're saying the information but in different ways,
they
you
are,
know,
yes, yes.
and it, the more that you learn, like, and you read this personal development books of like the top thinkers, then you're like, wow, this other author said it the same, but in this different way, you know, and that's what it is, you know, like, but some will resonate more than others, you know,
Mhm.
and so I feel like it goes along with like our self-image too, like how we see yourself, what words we're going to be using, what resonates more with us, what words resonate more with us, and on and so forth.
That's beautiful. I love the taking your current inventory because you gotta know what you're working with and to be able to like see where you're going.
Exactly. What about
Mhm.
yourself?
I think mine is just really refining the image I have for myself and working on specific areas in my life now, maybe like finances
Hmm.
and relationships and I guess community
Hmm.
wise and just different aspects on not being so vague in
Hmm.
those areas, but specifically making clear, like more detailed, like visions in
Hmm.
those different areas.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Mhm. So
Yeah.
being more
And again,
specific.
being clear, giving it direction.
Mhm.
And I think that is so great because I think that as humans we continue to evolve. Well, maybe like a few months ago we wanted one thing, and then the more that we
Mhm.
continue to do this work, we're like, maybe I want this other thing. And you get a little bit more clear about that, and that's where the feedback comes in.
Yes, I was gonna say the feedback and just continue to move forward and knowing that just staying impersonal.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Exactly. Yes. All right. Well, this has been great. So thank you so much for listening and for watching, and stay tuned for our other part of this study of chapter 2.
Yay, see you next week.
Yay. See you next week.